Hey, what's up? Thank you for joining me on Iron Sharpens Iron. I'm Matt. And the question I have for you today is this. Have you ever felt like every time you take a step forward, life knocks you back 2 steps? And every time you try to do something, it's all you can do to just come up short and that nothing you do matters? Well, that's been me for the last 2 months of my life. More than I've ever felt like this before, the last 2 months of my life have really been a struggle. And if that's you, then this video is for you. And if it's not you, chances are at some point it's going to be you. And I hope it's not, but this video will still be here for you. And I came to understand three key words that changed my perspective and changed my outlook and is going to change my future. And these three key words can change your life and your future forever as well. So give me just a couple minutes and I'll get into it and I'll explain exactly what I mean. See, in August of 2022, I was a very well-respected detective at the agency where I worked. I'd won Officer of the Year, and I had the high esteem of almost all of my colleagues, supervisors, and coworkers. And then I didn't. Just in an instant, life changed. And life has been a struggle ever since then. But a year and a half ago, the culmination of bad choices that I made, my wife and I split up. I had to move to a different state to be close to my kids. And in the year and a half that I've been here, my life has actually been better than it has been in the last 20 years, it seems like, at least the last 10 years. The last 2 months, I've really felt like every time I take a step forward, I get knocked back 2 steps. And no matter what I do, I can't seem to make any progress, and that it's a constant struggle. And I really started to get down on myself. I really started to get sad and depressed and beat myself up. You see, ever since I moved to Reno, my 2 main sources of income have been mainly playing poker at the local casinos and a business that I started where I do print production and graphic design, logo design for different companies. And I specialize in hoodies and t-shirts and, cups and stuff like that. But my main printer broke, so I couldn't make any money doing that. And for the last 2 months, I've lost money playing poker. And in the last year and a half, that's the first time I've ever lost money over a monthly period, let alone 2 months consecutively. And I really started to beat myself up and get down on myself and feel like nothing I do matters. And if that's you, this video is for you. What I came to realize is that as I looked over the last 2 months of my life, nothing mattered. Nothing was progressing. I couldn't do anything right. And then I thought back a little further. I took a serious look at my life and I saw that at one point, very recently, within the last 2 years, I was facing the possibility of going to prison for 5 years. I also had to admit that I had done some dumb stuff and I, became, a stimulant drug addict to cope with PTSD and depression. And I saw myself slipping back into that pattern and I noticed danger signs that I had learned from in the past so I could stop it before it escalated to a point where bad things really happened again. But then I looked back further, 5 years, 10 years, even 20 years along my life. I took a serious look. And what I came to realize is that longer period of looking at my life would really show ups and downs and ups and downs. And what I realized is that over the last 20 years, my life is better than it was, 20 years ago or longer. I own vehicles now when I didn't before. The crazy thing is, 2 years ago or 3 years ago, my vehicles were getting repossessed out of my driveway. My house was in foreclosure. I didn't have enough money to make ends meet at the end of the month. As Jim Rohn used to say, I had way too much month left at the end of the money. And even though I've had this downturn in finances, with poker and production not working, what I realized is that I'd actually saved up money. For the first time in my life, I've saved up money. I have no debt whatsoever right now. And I couldn't say that 3 years ago. And that stress of debt and financial burdens was a big part of what pushed me into, self-medicating. But today, fast forward 2 years after the worst time in my life, I'm actually financially independent where I can create my own business. I can create my own schedule. More importantly, even though my printer broke and I've had a downturn in poker, I've still been able to pay my bills. That's never happened before in my life. And what I realized is that good news and good progress happens over a lifetime. Bad news happens in an instant. Maybe you don't have an August 25th, 2022 type of moment where you got arrested and you were blasted all over the front page of the newspaper. I did. And I hope that never happens to you. But chances are there's something that happened in your life, whether it was, the events of September 11th, if you're old enough to remember, or maybe it was, the events of COVID. Maybe it was a sudden job loss that you or a friend or a family member experienced. Maybe it was a sudden loss of somebody that you care about. The point is, for many of us, there's a point in time that we can think back to, we can remember vividly that just boom, in an instant, life changed forever. But when we try to think about good things, it's harder to see a good time in our life where something good happened and it changed our life forever. See, bad news happens in an instant. Progress and good news takes a lifetime. There's two examples that come to mind when I think of this. One is my kids. I have a 12-year-old son and I have a 7-year-old son, and I've seen them almost every single day since the day they were born. But out of all the times I've looked at them, and all the times I've stared at them, all the times I've yelled at them, all the times I've laughed with them, there isn't a single time that I remember looking at them or interacting with them and thinking to myself, they look dramatically or drastically different than they did the day before. And that's a good thing, right? And I thank God for that every day, because if there was a sudden dramatic change that happened that I could look at and go, they're different today than they were yesterday, well, it'd probably be a very tragic or traumatic incident, because like I said, bad news happens in an instant. But good news takes time. Good news takes so much time that a lot of times we have to look back over a period of several years. Think of the stock market crash in 2008, with the great financial crisis. Think of, Black Monday. Think of the Great Depression. There were times where the stock market went down, life went down for a lot of people. But today the stock market is higher than it ever has been, right? And that's the way progress is in our life. There may be times where we stumble and we fall, we get knocked back a couple steps. And if that's you, here's the thing. If you feel like life knocked you down and you came up short, the three key words that I was mentioning earlier are this: life knocks you down and you came up short. The very first three words of that response or that result are what I want you to focus on. Life knocked you down and you came up. See, that's the key. That's what we need to focus on. We can focus on getting knocked down. We can focus on what happened, and we should look at it. We should learn from it. But if we focus on it, that's where we're going to stay. If we focus on the result of you came up or I came up, that is the catalyst for being so much better in the future. We should look at what happened so we can learn from it, so we can learn from any mistakes we may have potentially made. But we can't dwell on that result. We can't dwell on the fact that we got knocked down. We have to focus on the fact that we came up. More importantly, that you came up. There's a couple chapters in the Bible that I want to cover briefly. It's in Psalms. Now, if you know anything about the Bible and you know about the books of Psalms, you know that King David of Israel wrote most of those. King David was one of the most prominent, most powerful kings of Israel that has ever lived. But there was a time in his life where King David had to flee. He had to live in hiding for fear of losing his life. And many of the books of Psalms were written during this time. And the chapters around 70s were written where David was asking God, crying out, why are you hiding your face from me? How long am I going to have to live like this? When will you restore your blessings on me? And he's kind of feeling sorry for himself. But in Psalms chapter 77, David has this realization that no matter what happens, he writes in Psalm 77, chapter 11, that, no matter what happens, I will remember you. I will remember your goodness. I will remember the good things that you've done. And see, what King David realized in this moment was that if he focused on the goodness, the blessings that God had poured out on him, it will give God the opportunity and the space to operate again. Now, there's an old book called Think and Grow Rich, written by Napoleon Hill, that capitalizes on this idea. And there was a very big movement and idea that was born at the very first part of the 20th century, in the early 1900s. This idea of manifesting your own destiny, of thinking and creating. Our bodies create, magnetic fields around us with frequencies that our brains and our bodies operate on. And there's an old phrase that I have no idea where it came from or who said it, but it basically says that energy flows where your attention goes. And the things that you focus on are the things that you're going to start attracting to you. And for many of us, we focus on scarcity and lack and needs more than anything else. And that's just basic human nature. That's a survival mechanism. But we have to break out of that if we want to get beyond it. And that's what I started to realize when I looked at my life over the last 2 months when things kind of took a downturn. I started focusing on negative poker play. I started focusing on not being able to fulfill customer orders or make products for people. I started to focus on losing business. And that hurt. But then I started realizing that even though I'm having a hard time right now, I've come so much further than where I used to be. I'm in such a much better place. And almost instantly, things started to change around. Doors opened up for me to buy new equipment. Doors opened up so that for whatever reason, smaller sessions playing poker were profitable again. And I can't explain it other than my attitude and my perception and my focus changed from just being pessimistic and negative all the time to being optimistic and realizing that I've achieved great things before, I can do it again. Maybe I made a mistake in the past in abusing drugs, but that doesn't mean that's who I am today. It's been over 2 years since I've turned my life around. Now, I wish I could have done it on my own before things collapsed, but I was too stubborn to ask for help. And hopefully that's not you, but that's what this channel is largely about. That's the main focus, is making sure that I can help people understand that it's okay to reach out and ask for help before life collapses around you. But more importantly, it's a day-to-day motivation to help you realize that maybe you're in a negative spot now, but that doesn't mean that's who you are. And that doesn't mean that's who you have to stay. So my challenge to you today is to focus on those 3 words. Life knocked you down, but you came up. And I want you to make this promise to yourself right now. The promise that I said out loud, and I want you to say it out loud, is this. I am not going to quit. I'm not going to quit now, and I'm not going to give up now. Life knocks me down, and I got up. I'm not going to quit now because I have come too far. So for my family and for my kids, most importantly for myself, I won't quit. Not now, not ever. So take those 3 words, I came up, and use them to change everything about your life today. Because today is the start. If you procrastinate, wait till tomorrow, it's going to be no different. I promise you will be no different unless you start right now, right here. And it's as simple as saying that one phrase I just said, that one promise to yourself. I came up. Life knocked me down, but I came up. And I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to stop. And I'm not going to give up. So if that's you, I hope you get something out of this video today. If it's not you, chances are it could be you in the future, or at the very least, it's going to be somebody that you know. So if there's somebody you know who needs this message, send them this video. Send them a link to this video. Reach out to them and let them know that you're standing there ready to fight alongside them, because nobody should fight alone. The problem is most of us are fighting battles in silence and nobody knows about them because we don't tell anybody. But we need to break that stigma down. So going forward today, remember, I came up. Those are the 3 magical words that I want you to remember for the rest of your life. Life knocked you down, but I came up. You came up. So until next time, I appreciate you watching. Hit the like button if you got something out of this video. Subscribe to this channel if you really want to get the rest of the videos that I put out as they come out. More importantly, share this video with somebody you know who's struggling, somebody that you can reach out to and help. So until next time, thanks for watching. I'm Matt, and this is Iron Sharpens Iron.